installment of the Sophisticated Shut-In. I'm Ivan Vuk-Pavlovic. This is the 11th day of our mandated stay-in-place order. It is April 3rd, 2020. In an effort to spend some time constructively during these times, I've been doing this live stream series, and today, rather than just take up 20 minutes or half hour of your time, I'm going to spend those 20 minutes to a half an hour discussing some of my favorite books on menswear, so that you can further take up more time on your own. I'll be discussing 4 books by 3 different authors. I will be doing very, very short readings from each, just so you can get a better sense of the tone of the book and the style of content. I'll be suggesting a couple of movies afterwards, and then we will discuss the topic for the next broadcast, which will be this coming Tuesday, April 7th. So, the first 2 books I'll be discussing are excellent starting points for someone who has little or no knowledge on classic menswear. They would each make a fantastic gift to, say, a young teenage man who is just starting to develop an interest in this field. And though they are similar, they attack the issue from slightly different angles. All 3 authors that I'll be discussing do agree on one very, very fundamental postulate, and that is that fashion is fleeting and permanent style is timeless. I don't know who said this, and I'm paraphrasing their quip severely, but the sentiment is that if you are on trend today, you are guaranteeing that you will be off of it next season. However, if you pursue timeless style, you will never look back. So with that in mind, the first book up for discussion is Dressing the Man by Alan Flusser. He is perhaps the most celebrated author of our era on this subject. He has written a handful of titles, another of which we'll be discussing shortly. This is his most recent. I believe the first edition came out in 96, something like that. Could be more recent than that, actually. And it is a very thorough look through the basics of menswear. Everything from the most formal of white tie ensembles down to the most casual of sportswear. I will be reading a passage from the preface. Rest assured, this is the longest passage I'll be reading today. But it speaks to the concept that I just mentioned. And we begin. Dressing well rests on 2 pillars, color and proportion. Once you learn which colors enhance your complexion and why specific proportions flatter your physique, you are halfway home. And what does it take for a man to grasp these 2 critical aesthetics? Not nearly as much aptitude or savoir-faire as you might think. Consider this. The classic male tuxedo confers instantaneous clan on all corners, yet this old world regime is composed of only 2 colors, black and white. If such a simple color scenario can help any man appear debonair, you don't need to be some kind of Kandinsky to look your best. As for proportion, here's a kind of mindset responsible for the current state of sartorial confusion. Men, as well as women, invariably inquire whether tie widths will become larger or smaller. However, answer lies not in the world of fashion, but in the realm of personal architecture. The width of a man's necktie should relate to that of his jacket's lapels, which in turn are governed by the size of the coat's shoulders. Should a man be broad-shouldered, a slightly wider necktie will harmonize better with the jacket's fuller proportions. If small-shouldered, a narrower necktie might be a more flattering choice. Fashion should be accountable to a specific set of physical trademarks and not to some random, seasonally served up set of fashion flashes. So there in the preface, Alan Flusser talks about the need for color and proportion rather than chasing trends. The next book I'll be talking about is by Bernhard Reuzel, and it's called Gentleman. It covers many of the same topics. However, it is a little bit further reaching. It discusses grooming, travel, things of that nature. Touches on some points of etiquette. So while this is an excellent guide to dressing well, and it really is, because of its somewhat wider reaching topics, it might actually make a better gift to a young gentleman looking for a wider grasp of what it means to be one. And this is from the very end of the preface that I'll read. You'll notice that Alan Flusser is very, very matter-of-fact, almost academic writer. Bernhard Reuzel is also sort of on that tip, but then when we get to the next book, it'll definitely change it. So this is the end. The context will be a little weird starting, but you'll get the drift. But there's also another lesson to be drawn. Dressing like a gentleman costs not only time, but money as well. An investment in a good garment generally entails further expenditure. Someone who is wearing a pair of genuinely good shoes for the first time will automatically cast a critical eye over the rest of his clothes. And as a consequence, the need for a good suit arises almost out of necessity. This, in turn, demands good shirts and ties. It is a process which usually takes several years, and it is better that way. A wardrobe must grow like the decoration of an apartment. This is a highly individual process which can and should lead each of us to a unique style. As has already been mentioned, clothes are the visiting card of a personality. So most people into menswear, whether they're authors or not, are into clothing because they tell a lot about a person before you even meet them. Bernhard Reuzel really takes that to heart in his book and really focuses on one's confidence in presentation. So those are excellent starting points as tutorials. Not all books on menswear are of that nature. This next one is certainly not. It's Bruce Boyer's most recent book. I think it came out a year or two ago. It is called True Style. Rather than an instruction manual, this is a collection of vignettes, of just musings on various elements of menswear. I wouldn't recommend this book unless you already have a decent grasp of classic style and menswear, because a lot of things he goes into without necessarily explaining the basics. but it is very whimsical, lighthearted. It is organized into a bunch of chapters which are sorted alphabetically according to the title of the chapter. And the title of the chapter itself is often whimsical or unrelated to the one before or the one following. The first one that I'm going to read from is titled Ascots. So I doubt I have to explain why I chose these two paragraphs. It is an unfortunate truth that most men have no idea what to do with their necks. When not safely ensnaring their napes in a necktie, they seem to either forego all other options and literally stick their neck out, airing them like so many turkey wattles projecting from their own open collars, or attempt solutions with lesser articles of clothing. From time to time, for instance, the turtleneck sweater will make one of its periodic returns to the sartorial scene as a sheath for the exposed gullet. And many, too many, men will embrace it with the passion of the hopelessly desperate. Whole squadrons of otherwise sensible gentlemen will arrive at cocktail parties sporting their navy double-breasted blazers with white turtleneck jerseys. Clustered on the patio, they will resemble nothing so much as a cast of movie extras between takes of Sink the Bismarck. There is really no need for all the confusion over the matter of the neck when the perfect solution has for so long been at hand, if you'll pardon that mixed anatomical metaphor. The comfortable, jaunty, and ancient tradition of the scarf. Call it what you will, ascot, cravat, stock. The scarf at the throat is a tested and true answer to the naked neck. It is also the answer for those baffling, formal, but dressed-down occasions when a coat and tie are too stuffy, but slacks and a polo shirt are too scruffy. A scarf at the neck provides the right accoutrement to a cashmere cardigan, tweed jacket, navy blazer, or summer sports coat. Nothing so exactly achieves the air of casual elegance, of sporty self-confidence, as the mannerly fold of fine silk or lightweight cashmere with an open collar. I couldn't agree more. True style, Bruce Boyer. Finally, this is one of my particular favorites. It is by Alan Flusser, the gentleman who wrote the first book discussed. But it's a different approach altogether. This is the first edition, came out in the mid-90s, and in fact, I believe I was thinking of this book when I said 1996. I think Dressing the Man is far more recent. Style and Demand, How and Where to Buy Fine Men's Clothes. This is the old edition, and the first 120, 130 pages discuss menswear in a very, very analytical fashion. It doesn't talk about how to put things together, but merely why things are the way they are. Why a coat length is the length that it is. How we've settled on tie widths. That sort of thing. And then the latter 2/3 of it is a compendium of menswear shops, blurbs about them, from all over the globe, mostly in large cities. So, it starts with Boston, Chicago, Dallas, Florence, Hamburg, London, LA, Milan, etc. This is problematic because many of these shops have closed down. Some new ones have sprung up. So more recent editions don't have that section. It's merely a 130-page book. But those who want to get a deeper understanding of not just what things are and how they are. This is an excellent explanation of why things are the way they are, and some of their origins. When my friend Dave read this book, after I lent it to him, he said, I really like Alan Flusser's writing. No one uses a period quite like Alan Flusser, and I agree. There's just something about the way Alan writes which is so aggressively final. The way he writes just suggests that he is not whatsoever interested in disputing any points that he's made. This is from a short excerpt from the book. Remember, this is a book centered on how to shop for clothes. So this paragraph definitely speaks to me. Conversely, if you like to accessorize your more English-style suits with high-class furnishings, you might want to be attended to by someone whose taste demonstrates first-hand experience in such matters. A salesman who dresses as if he is interested in clothes usually regards his profession as something more than just an opportunity to bring home a regular paycheck. He prides himself in his taste and enjoys taking the extra effort to find something special. Ideally, in the course of your dialogue, he should be able to teach you something about how to dress better while assisting you with your decision making. And there you have it. Before we conclude, I'd like to talk about two of my favorite films. They are not primarily concerned with menswear, but feature some very, very lovely menswear. The first one is the directorial debut of a Mr. Tom Ford. Tom Ford is primarily a fashion designer born in Austin, Texas. I'm not so much interested in his fashion, though to give credit where it is due, he is credited with saving Gucci in the 90s, saving Yves Saint Laurent in the early aughts. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But he has directed 2 movies, and for someone who has never done it before, or even someone who has, they, in my opinion, are shockingly good. His first, which came out, I think, in 2009, is called A Single Man. It stars Colin Firth as a college professor, a British college professor who lives in California in the early 60s, following his life after his lifelong partner was killed in a car crash. It was a very sad movie, but everything about him, the way he dresses, his mid-century modern house with its furnishings, his Mercedes, are absolutely impeccable. So if you ever wonder where I take my inspiration, it's from people who dress like him. Fair warning, if you decide to watch this movie and say, oh, that was really nice, let's check out Tom Ford's other movie. It's called Nocturnal Animals, and it's a very different kind of movie. It's very violent, very difficult to watch. I'm glad I saw it. It's an excellent movie, but just be warned that it is very, very different in just about every way. So, that's one. The other movie that I can suggest just for the clothing is a hilariously preposterous movie, in my opinion, called Elizabeth at 90. This is a documentary narrated by Prince Charles to celebrate his mother's, Queen Elizabeth II, her 90th birthday. the way they do this is that they go into the vaults of home movies, which were shot mostly by the royals themselves. And then the bulk of the movie consists of shots of different royals, including Queen Elizabeth, including, most of the family, not Prince Philip though, who refused, sitting around in these lavish rooms, mostly in Buckingham Palace, watching old movies of themselves on large screen TVs and commenting. Again, as I said, it's completely preposterous, but let me tell you, it's wildly entertaining, and every single person in the film is impeccably dressed, whether it's in real time, so to speak, or in the actual movies that they themselves are watching. Absolutely wonderful. So speaking of preposterous Brits, which, by the way, is one of my favorite demographic of person, I would like to leave you with a short passage from Debrett's handbook regarding black tie dress, tuxedo. This to me is just so quintessentially British. A fashionable interpretation of black tie, when a black tie instead of a bow tie is worn with a dinner jacket, is often referred to as Hollywood black tie. For formal private black tie events in Britain, this look is unsuitable. The British. So, as I mentioned, the next broadcast will be this coming Tuesday, April 7th, time to be determined, when we will be going through my shoe collection, talking about the different styles and appropriate wear of these shoes with different kinds of outfits. Thank you very much again for letting me do this, and please comment if you have any questions, any comments. I would love to hear